So Keith, last time we talked about how establishing and following a few simple rules can help make idea generation activities much more successful and productive. So once you do that, it's then time to start thinking outside the box.
Oh no, another one of those cliches, thinking outside the box. Okay, Mitchell. So just what box is it that we're going to start thinking outside of? Where's the box?
Okay, well, the box is in here, of course, all right, but it's really made up of our self-limiting beliefs about what we think is possible or what we think is not possible.
So assumptions is what you're saying. And I know all about assumptions because when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Get it? ASSUME. Assume.
Yes, that's right. All right. So why don't you tell our audience why assumptions can really get in the way of innovative thinking and problem solving? What's the big impediment?
Great. Well, first, I think we should talk a little bit about exactly what an assumption is. In our training sessions and in our facilitations, we ask people all the time for definitions. And, people seem to have a vague notion of what it is. But we define assumptions simply as a preconceived notion, belief, or idea about the way something is, just is, or the way something should be. Right? So we all have these assumptions. In fact, we have lots and lots of them. But most of the time, we don't even realize that we have these assumptions or beliefs about a challenge or a situation.
Yeah, and that's right. And what makes assumptions so insidious in many ways is that they operate invisibly outside of our conscious awareness. And just like the way fish are oblivious to the water they swim in, or birds are oblivious to the air that they fly through, individuals and teams and even entire organizations are often unaware of the beliefs that they believe are true and the beliefs they operate under. And these beliefs can really bias their thinking process because they often sound true or plausible, or maybe it's something that an expert said, right, that people just sort of take on face value. But there's often little to no evidence or support or proof to support it. And you could say it's kind of like fake news. It's something that people hear, right? They believe and they sort of operate as if it's true, or maybe even more accurate, it's like a fake perception that's out there, but people don't question it.
Mitchell, it's interesting you said that because you sort of suggested this, but assumptions are not just something we hold individually, right? So right. Entire groups, entire organizations, entire industries, and in fact, entire countries, as you've just said, can harbor shared assumptions and beliefs about what is or is not possible. And so these assumptions, these limiting assumptions, can give us a false sense of limitation, and they can undermine our confidence. And the more of them we have, the less likely we are to try exploring new and different possibilities. And therefore, the less likely we are to come up with truly innovative solutions.
Yeah, you could almost say that assumptions are like blinders. They create blind spots. So if I have assumption that we can't do something in this direction, I'm not even going to look over there. So that whole world of possibilities just doesn't get explored. So the more perceptions you have, the blinder you sort of get to what is possible out there. Right. So Keith, what would be some good examples of like just very common limiting assumptions that groups or individuals or organizations may have?
Sure. And, a lot of times assumptions obviously are specific to the situation or challenge, but there are some that are very common, like believing, solving this challenge is going to be difficult and time consuming. And, when we have that assumption, more than likely it's going to be difficult and time consuming because we're not even going to consider the possibility that it won't be. Or there's just no simple solution to this problem. It's too complicated. Those are the kinds of beliefs that limit us. A real common one, right, is, oh, my boss is going to hate this idea. And by the way, boss is going to hate it. You can substitute my customer is going to hate it. My client is going to hate it. My coworkers are going to hate it. My teacher is going to hate it. My spouse is going to hate it. Anytime there's someone whose approval or support we need, if we assume they're not going to like our ideas, we won't even go there, right? We're not going to take the chance. We're not going to do that. Or how about, we don't have enough money to challenge this tackle, right? We heard that a lot when we worked in advertising. Oh, we don't have enough money to do it. And a good one, that's just the way things are done around here. They've always been done that way. They're not going to change. So as you can see, all of these things keep us from exploring areas that we might explore otherwise.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of blinders out there, right?
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we can eliminate limiting assumptions to think more innovatively. And here's the process. It's actually pretty straightforward and easy to do once you know what the methodology is. So first, what you want to do is, because as we said earlier, they're sort of transparent to us. Like we're not even realizing that we have these assumptions that we're operating on. So what you want to do is, before you tackle a challenge, you want to make a list of all the assumptions or beliefs, limiting assumptions and beliefs that you have about the challenge or your ability to tackle the challenge, right? Next, what you want to do is question these assumptions. And the way you do that is very simple. There's a 3-question approach. We call it the drill down. And it's very powerful. So first, what you would do is just take your very first assumption that you have on your list, and you would say, is this assumption true? Now, on the surface, it may sound true. So you would go on to the second question, which is it absolutely true all the time without exception ever? So in other words, can you imagine a circumstance where it may not be true? Now, that may start to create some possibilities in your mind, but then again, the assumption may be very strong. So you would then move on to the third question, which is, if it's not absolutely true all the time without exception ever, what becomes possible, right? Now, this may sound a little intellectual, but let's use a tough hypothetical challenge, like the one we use in our training programs, right? Which is, so imagine that you have a client who is an airline, right? And they want to convert fearful flyers into frequent flyers. And they want to do it quickly, right? So the first thing you would do with that challenge is you would start to make an assumption, a list of all your assumptions and limiting beliefs about the challenge. Things like, fearful flyers, they're never going to want to become frequent flyers, or that converting them would be difficult or impossible, or it's just way too complicated and it'd be way too expensive. Now, if you do this 3-question drill down, you'll find that most of the beliefs will dissolve under analysis.
Let's try it,
right? Let's go through it. Okay, so let's take the first one, that fearful flyers would never want to become frequent flyers. All right, so Keith, is it true?
All right, that sounds true to me, because if I'm truly afraid of flying, then more than likely I'm not going to want to do it more. I would like to do it less. So I think that sounds true. Fearful flyers would not want to become frequent flyers.
Okay, so now we'll go to the second step. Is it absolutely true all the time without exception ever? Or could you ever imagine a circumstance where it may not be true?
Well, okay, yeah. So what if I'm a fearful flyer, but for a variety of reasons I have to fly, or I want to fly, right? So that I can do more business, or to see my family more frequently or more easily. So yeah, in that circumstance, I could imagine being afraid of flying, but saying, you know what, I wish I could do it more because it's going to benefit me. So sure, I can imagine a scenario where that's possible.
Okay, so you see how the limiting assumption and belief is starting to dissolve away a little bit. So now we're going to move on to the third question, which, if it's not absolutely true all the time without exception ever, what becomes possible?
Well, I guess if I'm an airline, I could do things to help address the fearful flyers' fears. I could give them educational programs or social media groups where they could come together and talk about their issues. You could have buddy programs. You could have special incentive programs where you discount. They even provide counseling to some degree at the airport for people who have fears. So there are all sorts of things that an airline might be able to do to help at least minimize those fears.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, in our training programs, when people tackle this challenge, they come up with fun ideas like making like an embryonic like chair that makes people feel better, or pipe in very soothing music, or have onboard therapists, or placebo engines on the plane. Once you really start to open up to new and different possibilities, things that seemed impossible or unlikely at some point suddenly become much more possible.
So placebo engines, that's instead of fake news. Instead of fake news, that's like fake engines, but they're there to give people a greater sense of confidence. Maybe not a well-founded one, but
right.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, questioning yourself. By the way, that's a technique. The technique that Mitchell just described is one that we actually call escaping the box. Mm-hmm. Because really, when we talk about thinking outside the box, what we really mean is thinking beyond or outside of our limiting assumptions. So remember, the next time you set out to tackle a challenge, don't make an ass out of you and me. Challenge your assumptions and allow yourself to see what amazing things just might be possible.
That's right. And next time, we're going to let you in on a powerful secret for innovative thinking, and it's how to manage your thinking processes. Uh-oh. And you may or may not know it, but when it comes to the ideation process, your mind actually works in two different and opposite ways. And knowing one from the other can mean all the difference between innovative thinking or failure.
Well, that's going to be very cool. And by the way, those two ways are not just well and not well, or good and bad. It's way more interesting than that. So please don't miss that. And until then, remember to think more innovatively. Do you have questions about how you and your team can think more innovatively? Email them to us at partners@smartstorming.com or contact us through our website at smartstorming.com.